going on, everybody? Thank you so much for coming back to another video. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. This film stars Tom Hanks as Fred Rogers, or better known as Mr. Rogers, as well as Matthew Rhys as Lloyd Vogel, which is just a fake name for the real life person that this is about, which I believe his name is Tom Junned. I could be pronouncing that incorrectly. But yeah, I want to go ahead and start this review off by saying I am not the biggest Mr. Rogers fan. And that has nothing to do with the fact that I'm not a fan of what he did or what the role he played in society, his role in pop culture, and his show. I just didn't watch too much of his show, but I definitely have seen many of episodes. I know his role in pop culture. I know who he was, and I know a lot about him. But I won't pretend like I'm some sort of huge invested Mr. Rogers fan. This is just me going to watch this movie as a fan of Tom Hanks and as somebody who respects the role that Mr. Rogers had in society and pop culture as a whole. And I wanted to go ahead and just check out this movie, so I can't really say that I have too much experience or knowledge behind Mr. Rogers himself, the real life story, or anything like that. So going into this, I'm just reviewing this as the movie on its own. However, I did look up a little bit about this movie afterwards, and like I mentioned, the main character of this film, whose name's Lloyd, is actually based on a journalist named Tom. So I don't know how much more they changed about the story. I didn't really look too much deeper into that. So if you do know more, let me know down in the comments below and kind of fill in the gaps that I may not know. As far as this review goes, I will just be reviewing it as a film on its own and not really going to be tackling into the real life events because I just don't know them. And so I just wanted to lay that out here at the very beginning. What I can say about this film at the very beginning is that this is a very delightful film. That's the biggest thing I could say about this film. This is a film that very much feels delightful as you're watching it. It has a lot of messages throughout it, and there's definitely a lot about it that makes you really think about people, yourself, think about life, and just the people that you have around you, your loved ones, the people that you may be harming by being a certain way, how your personal attitude and your personal perspective on life can very much harm the people around you, whether it's minimally or even in big ways, you know. Let's start with the biggest positive about this film, and it's the performances. I really love the performances in this film. Of course, Tom Hanks is a fantastic actor, so to see him take on a real life person, you know, with Mr. Rogers, it was really well done. I have to say Tom Hanks really did a great job in this role. You know, he is Tom Hanks when you watch it. He is not doing necessarily an impersonation of Mr. Rogers. He very much is doing some sort of an impression of him, but for the most part it feels like he is really just conveying the same energy and the same person that Mr. Rogers was. And I really enjoyed that about Tom Hanks' performance in this. He wasn't really trying to just do a full-on impression the whole time. There are moments where you can definitely tell he is really trying to emulate who he was, and I think that that's really what I enjoyed the most, is that he made it his own and really just emulated that spirit that Mr. Rogers had on camera and just as a person altogether. Anything you ever see behind the scenes footage or any sort of interviews, he definitely emulated who it was that Mr. Rogers was, and that's something I definitely enjoyed about this film. He was totally believable in the role as the movie went on. He was Mr. Rogers for the almost 2 hours of runtime that this movie was, and I really, really enjoyed Tom Hanks in this role. That's not really surprising to me because Tom Hanks is an incredible actor, and usually when he's given a role or when he tackles a role, I feel like it's something that he's really going to nail, and in this case, I think he did a really, really good job. He really brought out the love, the peacefulness, the happiness, and just the, I don't even really know how to express it, but just the beauty of the kind of person that Mr. Rogers was. And that's something that for me, when I'm walking out of this movie, really just inspired me. You know, I knew who Mr. Rogers was. I definitely heard him speak, and I would hear him talk about all these positive things. But to see a film that really takes it so seriously and really just deep dives on this person, and what I really loved about it too, this is not really a film about Mr. Rogers, and that kind of surprised me. I've maybe seen the trailers a couple of times, and I knew what the basic premise of this film was, but I was actually shocked to see that Mr. Rogers was not the focal point of this film. I thought he was going to be, and I was actually pleasantly surprised to find out the film is actually about the character of Lloyd here. So the basic premise of this film, without any spoilers at all, is basically you have this journalist who's kind of seen as a cynical journalist, somebody who's kind of good at interviewing people, but then when he writes his piece about them, it tends to be more of the negatives, who that person may be behind the scenes, you know, maybe what the public isn't seeing. That's the kind of journalist he's known to be when it comes to the magazine he writes for, and you know, he's obviously made a name for himself in that way. But he's also known to just kind of be a cynical person. He holds on to grudges, and he has a really broken history with his family, specifically his dad, in the past. And so he's sent on this job to go and, you know, do a piece on Mr. Rogers. And he's kind of trying to find the things about Mr. Rogers that are fake. You know, what this man can't truly be as peaceful and as happy as he really is, as positive as he is. And throughout the film, you know, this journalist really has to learn a lot about himself. He sees this man who truly has so much love and compassion and a beautiful perspective on life, and is so attentive to everybody that's around him. Something that he says in the film, and something that he kind of conveys throughout the film, is the fact that for Mr. Rogers, it was really about the moments, you know, and that's something that really resonated with me, is that the most important thing to him in that moment would be who he was talking to, who he was spending time with, what he was doing in that moment. You know, he wasn't stressed about the future, and you know, he does open up, and there are discussions in this film about the fact that he's not a perfect person. Though this film doesn't show this that much, and this film is a lot more in the lines of just kind of showing the beauty of the kind of person he was, you know, which is an awesome thing. I don't really think I needed to deep dive into that. However, they do talk about it and how it was a continual practice for him to you know, use his experiences and any pain that he had and anger, and really just use it to fuel the kindness that he wanted to put into the world, the love that he wanted to put into the world, the compassion. And that's something I really enjoyed about being able to see Tom Hanks in this role, because he sold that 100%. You know, by the end of this, I felt inspired to enjoy those around me, to enjoy, you know, my loved ones, the people maybe who I don't communicate with nearly as much that I do have love for, or the friends that I like to talk to a little bit more often, but I allow myself to get caught up in life and work. What I really took away from this film was just being able to really enjoy moments. I saw a quote not too long ago that said something about, you really don't know the value of a moment until it becomes a memory, and that's just, yeah, that's not verbatim, but that's the basic gist of it. And you know, being able to see this movie and kind of see that that was a theme throughout this, I really felt that, you know, I really was feeling that vibe throughout the entirety of the film. Having the ability to see this film from the eyes of the journalist and all the struggles he has in his own life, and how somebody like Mr. Rogers could really affect him and bring positive change in this character's life, I really, really enjoyed that. Again, I have no idea what the real life story was actually like. I don't know how much was fabricated for this film, but as far as going to watch this film on its own, I found it to be very delightful. I found it to be a very good, just sweet, good time with a very positive message. And I think the fact that it made me feel something and even have this much to say about it is a testament to the film on its own. Now, I think the biggest complaint that I have about this movie is that it is kind of slow at times. Now, it's almost 2 hours. It's like an hour and 49 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. I don't want to say it necessarily feels its runtime, but there's definitely times throughout this film that it definitely feels kind of slow, and some of the scenes are, you know, very quiet and kind of drag a little bit. However, I really can't criticize that too much, because it's the kind of film that this is. Every single scene is really kind of important. There are a couple scenes that maybe could have been trimmed down a little bit, but for the most part, they're all really well done. Everything from the lines of dialogue and the actual performances really drive each scene home, as far as just kind of getting the message across of what they were trying to do. Now, there are a couple things that felt a little rushed every here and there, and some things, like I said, that could have been trimmed down a little bit, but for the most part, I found this to be a really enjoyable watch. However, I think it's important that I mention that there were a couple of times that my eyes felt kind of heavy. You know, this is not a film that is just entertaining from beginning to end. This is a film that's very intriguing, that's thought-provoking, that has really good, subtle, but meaningful and believable performances, but isn't necessarily something that I can say is all out of this world entertaining, or even that entertaining. As somebody who loves films and loves being able to watch people perform and give me a show, give me a movie, give me a story, give me feelings, I feel like this movie did that. However, the lady that was sitting directly next to me was dead asleep literally 15 minutes in, and was snoring throughout the entirety of the film, which was a little bit annoying. However, that's kind of where I feel certain people are going to land on this film. You know, some people I think are going to be into it like I was, and being able to be invested in it. Now, this movie is not out of this world or anything crazy. I think, like I said, there are elements about this film that can come off a little bit boring, and I think it was the performances and the messages and the themes about, you know, people in your lives and forgiveness and just positivity that really resonated with me. Because the older I'm getting now, you know, I'm only 26, but the older I'm getting, I'm really starting to realize how quick time is going by, you know, and how much precious time we have with our loved ones, and how easy it can be to get lost in just doing other things, get lost in work, and not contact people, not reach out to people to just get to know them for a little bit, not reach out to people to just talk to them, not reach out to family members that your days are dwindling, you know what I mean? And I feel like I really got that message from this film, a very positive message, and I think that I walked away with a really good outlook on this film on an overall level. However, again, there were quite a few moments where I found myself kind of battling my eyelids, and I hate to say that, right, because it's a good movie, but it is a little slow, and like I said, the lady next to me was dead ass asleep 15 minutes into the movie. She missed a pretty good movie, but something tells me that she wasn't going to stay awake much longer anyway, based on how quickly she fell asleep. On an overall level, guys, I recommend this movie. I don't think it's a film you need to rush out to theaters to see, but if you ever see it on Netflix, Redbox, or some other streaming service, definitely check it out. I think Tom Hanks' performance of Mr. Rogers was, very inspiring, and I think he did a good job of emulating who that man was and the role he played in pop culture. And I think that Matthew Rhys did a great job of playing this very vulnerable and broken character with a broken past and a broken history with family members, and you really do feel for his character. At the end of the day, there was a positive message, and I think that's what you really can ask from a film, is the ability to feel something and the ability to kind of have things to talk about, you know what I mean? And that's what I walked away from this film with. So yeah, guys, go check out this movie. I definitely recommend it. Again, not something you need to rush to theaters to see, but I hope you enjoy it if you check it out. And I can totally understand if this isn't your cup of tea. If you see the trailer and it doesn't look like it'd really be too entertaining to you, it probably won't be, I'll be completely honest, though I would still recommend it even if you do feel that way. So yeah, guys, leave your comments down below. Did you enjoy this film as much as I did? Did you not enjoy it? Did you find it as boring or as, easy to sleep through like the lady that was sitting right next to me? Yeah, guys, leave those comments down below. I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. It helps the channel out, as well as subscribe if you like this kind of content. Thank you for all of you who continue to watch, and I will see all of you guys in the next video. Bye-bye!